I'm Alfonso Mendoza, host of the My Ed Tech Life podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hey, welcome back. Steve here, and today I'm talking with Harvey Hazen. Harvey is a coach who for 37 years was in education. He works now with the parents of students who are struggling. Oh, there's so much cool stuff to learn today. Thanks for listening. And by the way, before you go, it'd be so cool if you went to my website, stephenmiletto.com/reviews and left a review. Could you do that for me? Maybe say some nice words and how about 5 stars? That'd be so cool. You are awesome. Enjoy the show.
It's the Education Podcast, your favorite show, with lots of groovy guests and they share what they know. So crank it up to 10 and let your neighbors know that here's another show with Dr. Steve Miletto. Teaching, learning, leading K12. Teaching, learning, leading K12. Teaching, learning, leading K12. With Dr. Steve Miletto.
Harvey Hazen coaches parents of students struggling to be successful and protect their tuition investment by helping their child find relevance in their curriculum and discover the life lessons it holds for their future success. He has been in education for 37 years. During that time, he spent time as a teacher, counselor, and administrator at all grade levels and organizational levels. He has a BS in history and an MS in counseling from Portland State University. In addition, he received accreditation in administration from Lewis and Clark College. So much to talk about today. Harvey, welcome, and thanks for joining me. Say hi to everyone.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. It's a nice day and a good day for a talk.
Very much so. Glad that you're here. And but before we get into our talk today, let's talk about you. You have served in many different roles in education over 37 years, from a history teacher, counselor, high school vice principal and principal, middle school principal, elementary principal, and school superintendent. Why'd you stay in education for 37 years?
That's a good question. And I've pondered that myself many times. I don't think it's money. As opposed to what people think about summers off, I usually either was back at college or when I was an administrator working during the summer. So I don't think it was that. It was a passion to help people. It was a real interest in students and their lives. And I think maybe overarching all of that was just the sense that you're doing something that's worthwhile, that you're helping people, you're setting students on the path to their future, and that's a good feeling. And it particularly is good when kids come back to you as they grow up later and say, you know, Mr. Hazen, this meant a lot to me. Tell you a story about something you did. And that happens often. And it's just a really good feeling. So I think that kept me there all those years. And I think it brought me back to do this because I'd been out a number of years, and then COVID come along and I looked at what was going on and I thought, you know, I just feel like I need to do something to help. You know, I need to jump back in somehow and help, and the coaching aspect seemed the reasonable thing to do. So that's how I got here.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. And you're so right. It's a little addictive when someone, you know, actually bumps into you wherever you are or looks you up. I mean, in this modern world, you know, they can find you in social media and stuff like that and says something nice to you because they remember whatever. And it's got to be very few other professions that have that type of something that is so addictive because it's like they may not know it.
Right. I think it's special. You're right.
It's a cool deal. So, well, good stuff, and congrats on going those 37 years and now being in the coaching business here. We got some good stuff to talk about, but I got one more question for you before we go there. So if you're able to go back in time from today, all right, to the day before you first stepped into your new classroom, all right, what is some advice you would give you about working with your students?
That's a really good question. I think I would probably say, you know, enjoy it. have fun along the way, see the positives, uh, solve the problems, be innovative and creative in your teaching and in your administration or whatever you're going to do in your career, and just for lack of a better term, show up, give a damn. You know, really, seriously,
Love it.
a lot of people get bored. They don't show up. They don't care. They just do it because they're physically there, but they're not really mentally there. So I would say stay engaged, stay involved. And that would be the best advice. The rest of it, enjoy the ride.
I love it. I've always thought, especially because once you've experienced all this that you've experienced, you start going, boy, if I had it to do all over again, what would I change? Because now I've experienced all this stuff, and and some of us just, I'm on the same planet with you, and there's always just any number of stuff that you've experienced over the years that you're going, daggum, if I could only go back in time and say,
yeah,
how about you do this one?
So there are always things that you would change, but on the whole, looking back on that 37 years and what it gave me in terms of my own personal feelings, I wouldn't change a thing. I enjoyed every minute of it, even the hard minutes.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. This is, it's a cool thing because this is because I can imagine sometimes in the moment you're going, all right, can someone beam me out of this place or something?
Yeah. When you got the angry parent in your office,
yes.
And you can't satisfy them no matter what.
Right.
Like, maybe I should be doing something else. But
exactly.
That only lasts a minute.
Exactly. And then it becomes part of your repertoire of things to share with people when you say,
That's right.
I was in a situation like that once.
Yeah, for sure.
I love it. All right. So let's start getting ourselves focused on the coaching that you do. And let's just talk about what some of the reasons are that students struggle in school that makes it possible to need to coach their parents about how to help them.
I think there are a variety of reasons that students struggle today, and it's hard to put your finger on any one thing. Some of it's involved with the parents themselves, certainly. Sometimes parents are absent. Sometimes they're overbearing. Sometimes they don't know how to advocate for their child to the school or to anybody else, and all of that kind of works into a picture. Then you get the peer group, and it isn't always cool to be a good student. I had a son who didn't think it was cool to be a good student. He scored he scored the second highest on his SAT in the school.
Wow.
At the end of his senior year, but his grade point was 2.6 or something. It was not bad. And part of it, I blame myself for. I was the principal of the high school he was at. He didn't want to be associated. He didn't want somebody to know that was his dad, doing the discipline or whatever.
Right.
But he's successful and incidentally an agriculture teacher, which is kind of funny, but because I was a farm kid, grew up, decided to leave the farm, and now he went back to being an ag teacher. It's kind of full circle, but
that's awesome.
So parents, and one of the ways I think I can help is I do two things. I work with the parents, but I also work directly with the student. I try to create a sense of relevance in their program so that they understand why they're there and what they're doing. That's important, what lifelong learning is all about, as opposed to just learning this subject today. And to try to instill in them a desire to be a learner and to move on. And you do that, you don't do that by directing, you do it by coaching, you do it by asking questions, you do it by getting them to engage with you. And I've always been good, and that's part of my counseling career, is setting up personal relationships with people. And I do that well with kids, and that's part of what I try to do in coaching, so that they care and will listen to me. I do the same sort of thing with parents, and I try to get parents to see that there are certain ways to motivate and to support your child, and there's other ways that are counterproductive, either ignoring or over demanding or whatever it might be that their individual case is. So that's kind of the picture, I think, of what parents are facing today. And then you add COVID into that, and all of the stress that has come along in families and stuff because of that. And it's just like a snowball rolling downhill, picking up speed. And I'm really concerned about what this generation is going to be like down the road. I think it's a very concerning thing to watch a generation. I think if we don't do the right things, we could lose a generation. That would be a disaster. So
sure would. It's a scary thing, because between not really having a world to identify with, as and having the focus on COVID, or being too focused on their cellular phone or the computer screen or whatever, the different things that have made them one of the loneliest generations that we have, and it's just crazy. So one of the things you've mentioned already just a little bit, I was wondering if we could go back to, which is, even though many parents want to help their children succeed, what might cause a disconnect with parents who may not understand how to provide help? And and we're also going beyond the fact that I can see where I don't know if I would want to everybody to know if my dad was the principal in my school.
Yeah.
Also,
that was an issue, and I could tell stories about it. I had a new secretary, and she'd been there several months, and one day I came back to school from a meeting, and she said to me, "There was a kid in here that said, 'Tell Dad that I don't need a ride home.'"
nice.
"Do you have a son here?" "Yeah, I was on here." And she had not a clue, because he didn't want anybody to have a clue. He just wanted to kind of meld into the background. And part of that was not getting really good grades that drew attention to himself.
Right.
So, but, there's several things that I think cause parents difficulty. One is, with schools particularly, is they may not have had a good experience in school themselves. So if they didn't have a good experience, how can we expect them to approach the school and advocate for their child without that background of how they felt about school? So that's one thing. The other thing is, many parents will kind of ignore a problem. Then when the problem gets big, they get angry. So they show up at school angry, and they unload on the staff. And that's counterproductive. It's not going to cause the staff to be happy about meeting the needs that they have. So I counsel parents that there's a way to approach the school. And the approach that you need to take is sit down, talk to your child about what they need to be successful, make a plan, then go to the school and talk to the school about that plan, and get the school to engage with you in helping that student, as opposed to making a adversarial sort of relationship with the school. And if they need help doing that, then they should find somebody to go with them to help them. There are advocate organizations, particularly if their child is on an IEP, because if the child is on an IEP and is neurodivergent in any of the fashions that can be, then they may need help in order to know what that child needs and how to advocate for that child when they go to school. And their organizations do that. Every community has some organization that will help parent go advocate for the school with the school. So I think it's a mindset issue with the parent to know how to help the child, and it's not a ignoring, and it's not a getting angry. It's a reasoned, practical approach to, we need to help this child. I want to engage with you as a school to help this child. You need to tell me what to do. I will tell you what I'm seeing.
Oh, that's awesome. I think one of the things that you're already got a little blockage there, which is that thing about you are my parent, therefore everybody else knows more than you do.
Yeah.
Can you tell I have my own sons?
Yeah.
And and then there's also the thing where we kind of forget that. I think sometimes parents forget. Forget's probably not the right word, but it's too easy to think they're still the little guys or the little girls that were your
Absolutely.
your babies at one time.
Grow up really quick, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that itself puts like a little wedge there, because it gives ground for you always treat me like I'm a little kid. Can you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you want to be treated like an adult. You got an argument going to happen right there. And
exactly. And you see it in parent child relationships all the time. The parent, a lot of times it's a dad, son, particularly. They have to be observing one right now, but and they butt heads over things. Don't do that, stop that. And so the kid picks up his phone, he sticks his head into the phone, and he ignores it.
Right. Jeez. That's a rough one there, because they do have a way to, what's interesting is that during COVID, when a lot of people were first experimenting with the virtual classes and stuff like that, one of the things that some of the kids figured out is they could turn their teacher off.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That only creates issues once you're expected to answer questions about things I guess I was not there that day.
Yeah. Exactly.
Crazy stuff. Before we go forward in time, let's stay in the past. I've read that you had a disconnect in college that left you lost and disheartened. Could you talk about what happened?
Well, I did. I came from a small town. I grew up on a small farm. My background was pretty limited. I mean, I barely got to the big city, ever, because that's just the way it was. So I wasn't a great high school student. I was average, maybe, but I did have some high school teachers, particularly in social studies, that really inspired me. And I decided pretty early on, in terms of, I wanted to leave the farm. I wanted to go to college. And by the time I went to college, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and it was because of those teachers that inspired me. Well, I got to college, and several things happened. One, all of a sudden, there's this huge environment. I'm living on my own. As I went to college, Portland State didn't have dorms. We had an apartment. I and a couple other guys had an apartment, and the whole landscape was just foreign. Classes were different, big lecture classes. The whole thing was just absolutely foreign. And for the first semester, quarter, we were a quarter system. First quarter, my grades suffered pretty badly, and I just couldn't make the connection I needed to make to know what to do. Well, luckily I had a couple of social studies profs, actually, who saw something in me, I don't know what, that then they took me under their wing and kind of babied me along a little bit till I got my bearings and I knew how to handle the change in environment. And From that point on, I started gaining ground, so to speak. My grades got better. I got more enthusiastic about the classes and what I was doing. Uh, and it made all the difference in the world. Plus, I'd learned a lot about my own learning style. Uh, I'm I'm very auditory. Show me, tell me, show me, let me do it. I got it.
Nice.
Talk to me or make me read the book, and I have a harder time learning. That's gotten better over the years, but I did it originally. So learning styles are important, and for kids to understand how they learn best would be one of the things I would work with kids on, whether it be college kids or high school kids or whatever, is learning their learning styles. I also had my math scores were not good. I don't think well in terms of abstract. So I got through algebra okay and stuff, geometry and the theorems and stuff. Plus, I had a pretty bad teacher in high school. That gave me a lot of problems. And I had a college counselor looked at my math test scores, and he said, "Well, you're probably not going to. You don't really belong in college." Well, what he really did was made me mad. And that was towards the end of my first quarter. He just made me mad. And I was going to prove that he was wrong. So I set out, instead of crushing me, it sent me the other way. So I guess I should thank you for telling me that. So, but all of that worked together, and I got myself together, and I did well, and got into my master's program in counseling. That was right down my alley. Did really well there. Then got interested in administration and did well there. Went on from there. So
very cool. One of the things that you talk about is that something that helped you get through those times was that you have like a mentor or someone who's like a coach too. Can you talk a little bit about that role that person played in getting you through those tough times?
The main one I think of is one history prof I had, and he said, I want to check in with you every week, and here's what I want you to do. I want you to start making a little diary, and in that diary, I want you to put down your impressions of how this class went, how this class went, how this class went, and what you learned in that particular day from that class about how you absorbed the material and learned. He said, and then I want to talk to you about it. So we sat down on a weekly basis, and he went over my log, and he said, what happened in this class, and how did you feel about it, and what resonated with you in terms of what the professor did or said, what didn't, and how can you connect that to your learning and what you did. So he really mentored me through that hard, difficult time. And that's kind of what I intend to do with kids too, is try to mentor them through that hard, difficult time. And it really depended on the personal. I really looked up to him. I really thought he was a great teacher, and that helped me connect with him and listen to what he had to say to me. So I think that's a really important aspect of this, is the connection that you have with somebody.
That's excellent. I love that. Yeah, it seems like if you make those connections, the more possible. Let's try that one again. It's possible that you have some sort of, I'm trying not to use the word connection, but you have some sort of thoughts about why you're there, or why that there's a reason to keep trying this, not just not just focusing in on yourself struggling or something like that.
Right. But and the beautiful thing about my case was, since I was going into education, he and a number of others really modeled for me what I wanted to do and be as an educator. They made a big difference in the trajectory that I took as an educator and how I saw kids and how I saw life.
Nice.
It just it did, you know.
That's excellent. One of the things that I'd like to kind of get us towards now is the program that you have. What's your program about, and who is its target audience?
Right. Well, I originally, I'm going through a program to develop this, and the original niche that I had developed was coaching for private school college students. And the reason for that was that the people that I'm working with said, well, that's where the money is. That's where you get it. Well, and that was the way my website was originally developed. And I was uncomfortable with that. I felt that was pretty elite, and I don't feel like a very elite person. So I forced them to change the website, and we broadened it to, we don't say college students at all at this point. It just says students. And it can be students from any grade level, though I'm most comfortable junior high through college with the older kids. But as far as the parent advocacy part of it, I certainly could work with the younger ones too. And sometimes that's the parents that really need it, is when their kids are first, second, third, fourth graders. That's when the kids need the best advocates they can get. So the program is set out so that I initially meet with the parents. I find out what the parents are feeling and what their needs are in terms of how they see what's happening. And I talk them through a little session on, how they're feeling about their child, how do they interact with their child. So I'm trying to gather information during that session, as well as get them to begin to engage and think about how they're engaging with the child. My next session is with the child themselves, the student, whatever grade level they are, college or two. And I try to find out, first of all, will the student engage with me, and is the student interested in improving? If the student says, I don't care, I'm going to college and I'm having fun, well, maybe that's not one I want to take on as and I may just have to tell the parents that this is not one that I really think I can make a difference in, and I want to focus on what I can. If the student says, I'm just struggling, I don't understand the subject, the connection of the subject, the relevancy of the material, and I need some help trying to get that connection made and my learning styles straightened out so I know what I'm doing. That's certainly a help. At that point, I would make a proposal to the parent about what kind of program I would put together and how it would look. Basically, that would be step one, the parent and the student. Step two would be an actual program where I engage with the student over a period of time, whatever that takes. And hopefully at the end of that, we have success. And the last step is a good celebration of the success we had with the parent, the student. My intent would be to right up front tell the student and the parent, I will keep in touch with you through this whole thing. I will give you a progress report through this whole thing. However, as a certified counselor, if in the process of this, the student reveals some things to me that are confidential, I'll ask them for permission to share that with you, but I might not be able to share it with you because confidentiality is important to kids just like it is to adults. So that's kind of the outline of the program and how it works. Each program is a little different and it's not a lockstep sort of thing. Each student needs a little different sort of program. So I've tried to make it as flexible as I possibly can. And if that means that they need some tutoring, then it may be that I contact, with the parents' permission, the school or the college and see if I can get them set up some tutoring, because I'm not a tutor. I'm not going to tutor subject matter areas. So that's kind of the gist of the program.
Gotcha. Appreciate it. It's one of the things that is got to be helpful for people is to be able to have, whether the parent or the child, is to have somebody helping them see that there's another side to the fence, that there's another, there is an end to that, that storm line or that rainbow or whatever. And I think that sometimes that's difficult for kids to see, especially depending on what age you are. But there are some ages that really lend itself to not being able to focus on the fact you might be telling yourself stories that aren't working out. I don't know.
And I think COVID has made that all, the break that COVID took and the type of education they were getting and just the whole sense of kind of disconnect that it gave. I think that had an effect on all this. I mean, I think, and it have had effect obviously on teachers too, because teachers are leaving in droves. That would be the other thing I'd be willing to do is, and I haven't made it, I haven't pursued that part particularly, but if a school or a group of teachers said to me, we would like some help in making our classes more relevant and working with us on seeing how we can do those things, I'd be willing to do that too. That's outside the coaching realm, but if and I'd like to stay in the local area. Obviously, I'm not into traveling all over, but if local districts want some in-service time, that sort of thing, I'd be glad to do that too. So
very cool. All right, so we're kind of getting close to wrapping up here. How does someone get started working with you? I mean, how do you get that going?
I have the website is harveyhazen.coach. So just www.harveyhazen.coach. Very simple. And on the website, it goes through just a kind of a basic explanation of the program. And it has links to request an appointment. And at that appointment, I'll spend half an hour or whatever time it takes to talk to the parent. And the first contact would be with the parent, and then let them know how they can proceed from there. There's a second part to the website that goes more depth into the program, and at that point I would give them that too, so they could set that up. There's also, when they sign up for a phone call, there's also a Zoom call, whatever they're comfortable with. There's also a little questionnaire piece that gets some basic information for me so that I know who I'm talking to and what's going on. So that's the route that they can go. I also have a LinkedIn page. They can contact me through there, and that's Harvey Hazen, or Hazen Educational. Trying to think. Hazen Educational is what that's titled, so that you can find it that way through Hazen Educational on LinkedIn. But I wouldn't expect too many people to contact me through LinkedIn. Probably go to the website. It's the easier way. So,
gotcha.
And as a result of doing the podcast, and you're being so gracious for me doing the podcast, if people mention that they heard about it through the podcast, and I will also schedule for them an additional half-hour time with them and the student for free.
Very cool. Thank you so much for doing that. That's awesome. So I will make sure that's in the show notes, or it says that as well, so that
Yeah.
they follow that. So thank you for doing that. Nice. One of the things that as you've kind of mentioned this just a little bit, but I want to remind everybody, Harvey, if someone wanted to follow up and connect with you and or learn more, where would you send them?
Well, first to the website, and they could learn more there. And I have an autobiography piece on the website, and there's also a testimonial from one of the psychologists that I worked with during the course of my career, so they could learn more there. They can learn. I guess basically, I'd say call me up and get on a phone call and ask me the questions you've got. That's the easiest way to do it. Probably is just get on a phone call and ask me the questions you got. I'm thick-skinned, so nothing is off limits if they want to ask me, where I work specifically and give them references. That's fine too. So I have no problem doing that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'll put that information in the show notes, and it'll be right there for people to click on so they can go follow you. Well, I got the last two questions for you, Harvey. And the first one goes like this. These are just questions I like to ask my guests. And the first one is, when so much is happening and needing to be done and life is extremely demanding, what stops you from quitting or giving up?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd even slant that question a little bit and said, why'd you go back to doing this? Why'd you just stay retired?
Nice.
What keeps me doing this, I think, is just the sense that there's a need that I can help fulfill, and that as long as you've got breath in your good sense that you can help people, then you should keep trying to help people in one way or another, or you should keep doing, and part of it's keeping myself active too, frankly. I'm part of my story is when I retired from education, I'd done some dog breeding training, showing, et cetera, for years, my wife and I. So I took that a little more seriously. I bought 50 acres over in Eastern Washington, and I started training hunting dogs and doing some hunting myself and doing the things I really had missed, fishing and whatnot, while I was working so hard. And I'm getting too old to do that. I'm not being fair to the dogs. So I'm kind of changing gears and going another direction, but trying to stay active and busy and doing something that's useful. And I always considered the dogs useful because I could show you a million pictures of pup going to a new family, and the smiles and the connections I've made with people over the years through that dog world have just been fantastic. And I think that's what keeps me going. It's just the need to do something. I think I see so many people retire, sit down, watch TV, and die 2 years later.
I got that right.
I don't want to be that statistic. Thank you. I want to keep going until I can't keep going.
So right. So right. This is the scary thing about it is that if you leave and everybody is left or hasn't left yet, or you leave and then and everybody else has, but they've gone wherever they've gone. I mean, there's any number of things that could happen in there. So,
and my biggest advice to everybody listening to this is have fun. My wife passed away a few years ago.
Sorry,
but I've connected with another gal, and we got married. Well, we decided that if a couple older people were going to get married, we should have some fun doing it. So we went to Las Vegas and had an Elvis wedding.
Oh, nice.
We had a lot of fun doing it. So, life carries a lot of twists and turns. But if you look at as what are the opportunities to enjoy and to have fun, then it makes it a whole lot better.
It sure does. That's too cool. Sorry, you're talking to an Elvis fan right now. So
there you go. It was really cool. It was a lot of fun. When she first said that's what she wanted to do, I was like, what? And it just turned out to be.
That is so awesome. My second honeymoon, we at 20 years, my wife and I were talking. We're like, we got to do something. And so we talked about it, and finally she gave in, and she said, all right, because from where I live and work, it's Memphis was kind of a decent, not too far, not too close type distance, and I said, and she said, all right, I'll give in. We'll go to Memphis. And I said, now don't pull my leg here, because this is exciting. I did, if I go there, I gotta go to Graceland, and I gotta go to Sun Records, and I gotta do all this. She said, just give me some barbecue, get me on a paddle wheeler in the river, and let's go to a zoo, and then I'm good. And I said, all right, they're good. And I even got her to go through Tupelo on the way there. So
that's great. That's great. Yeah, we had a lot of fun doing it.
Awesome.
The guy that was doing the Elvis impersonation and married us was really good, and we did the Blue Hawaii package.
Nice.
It was a lot of fun.
That's cool. Well, congrats on that. Last question for you: do you have a teacher in your past who made a difference in your life? If so, who was it, and what would you say if given a chance to say thank you?
Well, the one I would target the most is high school modern problems teacher. He's the one that really set me on the path of being a teacher and being, and he was a good friend, but long since passed. Name was McGovern, and he taught a class. He took an interest in every kid in that class. He knew you as a person, not just as a seat in his classroom. And it always amazed me that he could do that. And I'm sure he did it partly because he had an interest in me and what I was going to do, because my parents had a small fruit ranch, and they sold fruit at the ranch. That was where I grew up. And he became one of our best customers. He would show up all the time during the summer when we were out of school, and he'd want to know, how's it going? What are you doing this summer? You're keeping up with your social studies?
Nice.
And I think I would credit him the most with kind of lighting my fire to do what I did.
That's cool. That is so cool. Harvey, what an awesome focus you have that you've created for yourself. I mean, I hope that you keep on helping kids the way that you do and helping their parents work with them as well. Wishing the best in all you do. Thank you very much. I appreciate being on here. Great. You're a great interviewer. Hey, you have been listening to Teaching Learning Leading K12, a podcast to help you help kids achieve their dreams. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is a member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is a member of the podcast network based in Canada called Voice Ed Radio. Voice Ed Radio, your voice is right here. The opinions expressed on Teaching Learning Leading K12 are those of the guests and host. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is intended to share ideas, advice, and suggestions. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is produced for educational purposes. Hey, thanks for listening. It would be awesome if you visited my website at stephenmiletto.com and connected with me, left a review, and listened to more episodes. And by the way, you could also share it with your friends, with your family, and your colleagues. Thanks so much. You're awesome.